first time ever, we got 2 new seasons of Dexter in 1 year. That means it's time to stop and rank all 11 seasons of Dexter from the worst to the best. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of all 11 seasons of Dexter. My list is not the right list, it's my list, and I would love to see yours. One more thing before we get started. Today's video is brought to you by Audible. If you're like me and you like to read with your ears, not your eyes, you should consider joining Audible. You can get a 30-day free trial of Audible and a free audiobook of your choice at audibletrial.com/Sean Chandler. As of last month, I have been a member of Audible for 10 years. I listen to their audiobooks all of the time, and one of the audiobooks I listened to was the original Dexter book, which is the basis for the first season of the show. If you are a Dexter fan, if you cannot get enough of Dexter Morgan, consider joining over on Audible to get an audiobook of your choice. If you want to hear a different version of the story of season 1 of Dexter, if you want to dive into the rest of the lore in the book form of Dexter Morgan, check it out over there. That is audibletrial.com/Sean Chandler. The link is down below in the description. You get a free audiobook of your choice plus a free 30-day trial. And let's get started. In last place, season 6. From the very beginning, it is immediately clear that there is a sharp drop in the quality of the ideas and the quality of the writing. And that 1-2 punch of lackluster ideas executed poorly just kills everything about this season. There is one decent idea, the idea of having Dexter explore religion. The show has always kind of had these lessons that Dexter is learning about the human experience, making him less monster, more a man, and religion is a big part of the human experience for him to toy around with. But there's not really anywhere for him to go or grow in that department unless you're going to make Dexter like a devout Christian, which you're obviously not going to do on this show. So it just kind of turns into this very superficial exploration that doesn't really go anywhere. From there, it's just a bunch of bad ideas. The idea that Deb becomes the lieutenant because of a viral video, despite her age, qualifications, personality, lack of interest in paperwork, makes absolutely no sense. She does not have the temperament for that job at this point in time in her life. And so immediately, it just feels like a bad idea. The villain here, Colin Hanks, is not intimidating or interesting whatsoever. Edward James Olmos has more of a gravitas to him because he's Edward James Olmos, but he never feels like a real person because he's not. And so you have a season built around a villain and a theme that just never, ever instills any sense of earned dread to any of it. But the true villain of the season is Scott Buck, the showrunner. Now, he'd been on part of the writing team all along the way, and he was a part of writing a bunch of great episodes of the show. But that's not the same job as being the showrunner that guides the show in general, greenlights ideas, and is the quality control. And just you feel that everything in quality has dropped. Even simple things like all of a sudden, Dexter is finding quirky ways to kill everyone. Instead of his set ritual, the usual way he does things, Scott Buck was like, what if he's clever with all of his kills now to add something new to the mix? Well, that starts to break the universe. And you're like, what is kind of going on here? There's more overt lapses in logic where you just feel things kind of going off the rails. Quinn is a total train wreck in a way that's not interesting. He's just so belligerent and self-destructive. You hate him as a character in a way that you didn't prior to this. And then the idea that Deb is romantically and sexually in love with Dexter is such an atrocious, insanely bad idea that only happens when the person on top that gets to decide what happens has horrible ideas. And that's what's going on here. All of it leading up to Deb discovering Dexter's secret through the most absurd situation ever, where Dexter sets up a kill room in a location that Deb was very likely to be going, where other police officers were very likely to be. It makes absolutely no sense. But that's because the quality of ideas and the quality of writing has so dramatically dropped because the top guy does not have a job that he's good at. He's good at part of being a writing team. He's not the guy that's good at determining which ideas get written and does the quality check. And so this was just a train wreck of bad ideas. Coming in at number 10, New Blood. I hate that this one is so low on the list. When it first came out, I wanted to overall enjoy it more than I did. I finished my rewatch of it 2 days ago. On rewatch, I wanted, once again, to like it more than I ultimately did. But it is a deeply, deeply flawed season that ends on such an unsatisfying and unearned note. Now, unlike season 6, I do think there's quite a few interesting ideas in here. So right off the bat, the idea of taking Dexter, a character that we love, putting him in a new setting, a totally new phase of life, and playing that out is inherently interesting. Adding to that, Harrison connecting with his dad after all these years is an inherently interesting idea with a lot of possibilities of where you can explore. That is a decent setup for a season. Adding to that, Clancy Brown, great pick to be a villain in a season of Dexter. He's great at this sort of thing. He can be affable and charming. He can be terrifying. And you get all of that. If you want someone that can go toe-to-toe with Dexter Morgan, great pick. But in the execution, once you get past the first 2 or 3 episodes, it became immediately clear there were so many problems here. First off, the side characters outside of Clancy Brown are incredibly boring, dull, or insufferable. Angela has like no interesting personality whatsoever. Likewise, the location, it's just dull. Intentionally so. Miami is so lively, and this is supposed to be middle of nowhere, not much happens, but that also means there's just not that life to the environment around Dexter. So the show itself just feels much less exciting. Big, gigantic problem here. Harrison in every teenage plotline in this season. Harrison is so unpleasant and monotonous. He just keeps hitting this one note. You abandoned me. You abandoned me. You abandoned me. While driving the audience nuts because we are well aware something's wrong with Harrison, but he keeps lecturing his dad for abandoning him, even as his dad is trying to help him in pointing out something, the disconnect between what Harrison is saying and what he is doing. And these teenagers and the plot lines are just horrible. There's these kids bullying someone, so Harrison befriends the bullied kid so he can assault him and set him up and become friends with the bullies. And it treats them just like normal high school hijinks, but they're the bad kids. Bullies, mean, like everything about it. It's this nasty, nasty plot line where not one of them is remotely likable, and we're supposed to like Harrison. Just horrible, horrible plot lines. And you get to the end of it, and it feels like they start to maybe find their footing of Dexter mentoring Harrison. And in one episode's time, we go from Harrison's like, yes, we need to do this, to Harrison being like, you're evil, you're the blame for all of this, I have to kill you. Such a rushed finale, totally unearned, and it wasn't the culmination of the season. It wasn't like the season was building this lesson about Dexter learning. Like, this isn't the lesson he was learning. The story was about him reconnecting with his son. He finally does that, and the reward for that is him getting killed. Like, it does not in any way make dramatic sense, feel like poetic justice. Like, it's nothing like that. It's just a shocking ending from a character that's a psycho that assaulted a bullied kid. And now he's lecturing Dexter about how Dexter's a monster Who thought this was a good idea? So once again, they had a terrible finale. But anyway, just finished. I wanted to rant about it. Needed to make a video just ranting about it, but you get a long extended version here in our ranking. Today's video is brought to you by the Wednesday Season 2 official Woecast. Hey Nightshades, are you looking for something to scratch that Wednesday itch while you're waiting for Season 2 Part 2 to drop? Try checking out the official Wednesday Season 2 Woecast. Prepare to dive deeper into the mysteries of Wednesday with the ultimate companion video podcast. Join the frightfully funny Caitlin Riley along with her producer Thing as she sits down with the marvelously macabre cast and crew. Together they'll unravel each shocking twist, dissect the dynamics lurking beneath, unearth the deep Addams Family lore, and answer all of your lingering questions that simply refuse to stay buried. Guests include Emma Myers, Joyce Sunday, Hunter Doohan, Steve Buscemi, Fred Armisen, Catherine Zeta-Jones, the Joanne Lumley, and also show creators Algo and Miles Miller, and of course, Wednesday Addams herself, Jenna Ortega. With 8 delightfully dark episodes to devour, you'll be drawn deeper into the haunting halls of Nevermore Academy than ever before. But beware, you know where curiosity often leads. The Wednesday Season 2 official Woecast is available in audio and video on Tudum, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you find your podcast. You have been warned. Number 9, Season 8. I went back and forth between Season 8 New Blood, which went into that next to last slot. I think the ideas of New Blood are more interesting, but at the end of the day, I'd rather watch a season with the classic lineup in Miami with a terrible finale than kind of this very dull season with side characters I don't care about with an insufferable set of teenagers leading to a bad finale. So Season 8 inches out New Blood on this ranking, but it's another season where you just feel like the show has run out of ideas. It'd been going on a little bit too long. Everything is stretched out. And so you just have a series of ideas thrown out there with no cohesive through line, no cohesive theme, and an awful lot of just back and forths. The whole season, we had Batista retire, and then Batista's back. Deb has a job over here, and now Deb is back with the police. Deb is back with Quinn, and now she's dead. Deb's gonna be okay, and now she's got a blood clot and gonna die. Like, the whole season is just these back and forths of indecisiveness, like they just had no clear vision for how to end this thing and just threw every random idea that they had.
Our main writer, and I said, we're in crisis. And he said, no, we're not. And I said, oh, one of us is wrong. So I was disappointed. I'm still disappointed.
And it's another season that is filled with way too much soap opera. The idea of Vogel isn't terrible, but this far into the show, it feels implausible that we would just now hear about her. She's not interesting enough. She's not doesn't have an interesting enough personality or things about her that makes her stand out. So it's like, okay, this isn't a terrible idea. I just don't really care at this point in time. The whole Deb finds out Dexter's secret kind of wrote them into a corner, and doubling down on that with Deb killing LaGuerta writes them into even another corner to where Deb, the last 2 seasons, is kind of useless and pointless because she's such a train wreck. So you have Deb and Dexter going to therapy together. Just really weird ideas. The brain surgeon is completely forgettable, just not a very interesting villain, and he's revealed who he is so late into the season that I literally forgot what he looked like when I was rewatching it, despite the fact that I've seen it 2 or 3 times before this recent rewatch of it. So just a nothing burger of a final villain for the show. And then, the finale was an utter disaster of unearned, shocking twists and totally thematically unsatisfying resolutions that felt like contradictory messages. Dexter is about to kill the brain surgeon. He learns, I don't need to kill. He's grown. He's made it through the ultimate culmination of the journey of the show. And the resolution to that is Deb gets shot because Dexter didn't kill him. Because Dexter grew and changed, Deb gets shot and dies. That is such an audience betrayal, bizarre messaging. Like, what on earth are you trying to do with what you're communicating right here? The season itself, because it didn't have any sort of through line for where we were going, you move to this conclusion where your Dexter's like leaving Harrison and it doesn't mean anything. It's not the culmination. And the message that we do have is total, utter nonsense. And with all of these reversals of like, let's make Quinn happy. Just kidding. He's not going to be depressed forever. Look, Deb's gotten her life together. Just kidding. She's dead. I just don't know what they were trying to do because none of it felt like poetic justice. It's not that you necessarily needed happy endings, but you needed something that felt earned and made sense in light of the show that we were watching. It closes out on this monologue from Dexter as he drives into the hurricane.
I destroy everyone I love. I can't let that happen to Hannah, to Harrison.
But that wasn't the theme of the season. That wasn't the message of the season. It was just a random note to end on because they ran out of ideas. So you get like the worst possible ending that just feels random. It feels tacked on. It had nothing to do with anything that we'd been working towards. And thus, for 9 years, people were infuriated by how they closed out the show.
To see him go to Seattle and start being a lumberjack. I mean, my apologies, but I don't know where the hell that came from. So I've never been so honest about it. But
And I don't think it's a fan's job to be fair. You know, I mean, I totally get people's frustration with how that season ended. I think it made narrative sense for the character to put himself into this self-imposed exile. Maybe the way it happened could have been better executed. But I think no matter what we did, it would have been frustrating for people.
Coming in at number 8, season 7. Now, I do think this is a very flawed season, but there's a big gap between the bottom 3 and season 7. There is a lot in season 7 that I enjoy, or there's things that work well enough for me. There's enough of the dynamics in the show that I enjoy, but it also is in this era of just Scott Buck ideas, Scott Buck writing themselves into a corner, and just overall Scott Buck drop in overall quality of the writing. On the good side, I think Ray Stevenson is one of the great characters of the show that I wish he was in a better season. That both in the performance, his motivation of someone that's out to get revenge on Dexter out of love, but he's a shady guy in and of himself. It kind of brings in the idea of organized crime in a greater level into the world of Dexter, which is something that probably fits really nicely into the world of Dexter. The interactions between the two of them are a lot of fun. The cat and mouse, all of the chase between each of them trying to get the other one, all of that stuff, totally dug it. Wish it came at a different point in time in the season. I'm not a big Hannah McKay fan, but the general idea of a killer like that Dexter gets infatuated with, I think there's some stuff in there that works well enough. It's not a terrible idea, and enjoy it well enough. I don't think when you rewatch season 7, knowing the end of season 8, like it just doesn't make any sense. The idea that Dexter would trust his child with someone that tried to kill Deb, I think just strains way too much credibility. They make her a full-blown person that should be on his table that he would be trying to kill because of what she did to Deb and other people. And then they make it, no, she's not so bad after all. You're cheating in your writing with all of that. But, Hannah's okay. But like I said, the overall problems here just come from being in a point in time in the show where they were running out of ideas. They'd burned through a lot of plot lines, and they'd written themselves into corners. In particular, Deb finding out Dexter's secret kind of ruins her character. Because now, for the rest of the show, she's Dexter's nag. That's her role on the show, is to nag Dexter about him doing what the audience wants him to do. So this is a role that Rita frequently was in, and it always was trouble for Rita. And now Deb, her whole role on the show is Dexter, stop killing people, treating it like an addiction. And it just ruins the dynamic between two of the core characters on the show. And when a show runs long enough, you have to change dynamics. Someone has to find out eventually. I get somewhat why it had to happen, but also it really broke a lot of things in the show. Just like I said, you can just feel things running out of energy a little bit. LaGuerta, being someone that was so close to Dokes, getting on the path of Dexter, I think that's a really good plot line. Probably a plot line that could have been a good series finale that would have led to a much more satisfying resolution than the one that we got of whether her catching him turning himself in because he's learned and grows and he's not going to kill her. But instead they went with Deb kills LaGuerta, which I think is a terrible direction to go because you make Deb do something that Dexter would not even normally do. And I think there's a lot of gigantic problems in that for where they get stuck with the next season. So there's a lot in here that I enjoyed. It's more watchable than the bottom three, but also very flawed. Number 7, Original Sin. And this turned out to be a pretty big, pleasant surprise. I did not go in with the highest of hopes. I didn't think the trailer looked particularly good. And even the first episode or two, because they play pretty closely to established events, even things we'd seen in flashbacks, came off a little bit too much to me, like we are doing big budget fan fiction. But as the season went along, it did just kind of have a nice charm to it. It went back to the classic Dexter formula. And while it was playing it safe, it always had a little bit of that fan fiction feel to it. It delivered a really satisfying Dexter experience overall. And the performances, almost all of them, I thought, like you really believed these were younger versions of the character. Oddly enough, the only person that I felt was way off was Christian Slater. Like the biggest actor they brought in is the one that perhaps that was the issue, is that he just never feels remotely like James Remar. He never feels like the same character. So that's the big one that felt like a big oopsie in the casting. But I don't know who you could get to play feels like James Remar when we spent so much time with him as Harry Morgan. But, everyone else felt like you believe them as the younger version of these characters. In particular, our lead guy, you're like, yeah, this guy's doing a really good MichaelCHall without just feeling like we're doing an impersonation. It felt like we were diving into the type of cases, the type of episodes, the type of plots, like everything felt right, but in the past, so it had a little bit of a different feel to it. And at the end of the day, that was what I wanted. And Dexter himself was a little more childlike, not nearly as refined. He's figuring things out. It delivered a surprisingly pleasant Dexter experience. Not one of the best seasons because it did play it so safe and did have that fan fiction feel to it. But a week or two back when they said they weren't going to do season 2, I found myself surprisingly disappointed. I was like, oh man, I wanted to spend more time in that world. I wanted to keep exploring young Dexter. I wanted to see more from Sarah Michelle Gellar. I wanted to wait till all the characters get introduced and see Dokes and Dexter in their early interactions, and looks like we're not going to get that. Too bad. Then we have season 3, and to be perfectly clear, at this point in time, the top 6 on here, these are all seasons that I pretty well love. They're very good to great. So if you're mad that it's this low on the list, just to be perfectly clear, I really enjoyed this season of Dexter. And a big part of that is they kind of picked one of those central themes. And that's one of the things the seasons lower on this list didn't have a good central theme, that exploration that I think worked so great in these top 6 seasons. But this idea of what if Dexter had a friend, and they picked it to be Jimmy Smits, which I thought all right, this is great. Jimmy Smits is so great as kind of this charming guy, but he's a little bit of the pushy friend that's able to kind of pull Dexter in. And so you buy into this idea that he'd kind of be pressured into a friendship that he doesn't want because of how persistent this guy is, but he just has that quality about him, and you buy into it because of Jimmy Smits. And that was like a good next step for the evolution of Dexter as a character, and a very universal theme to explore with Dexter. Adding to that, we're diving, going all in on the relationship with Rita, where it turns out she's very horny because she's also pregnant with Harrison, which becomes this major turning point for pretty well the rest of the show, as Harrison becomes this key piece in Dexter's life. And so he's locking in that his pretend facade girlfriend is now becoming just his life. He has friends, and now it looks like, well, he's going to have a wife and becoming more that person. So it's just like growing him all along the way. And we start moving in some of these other key characters that stick around for a long time, and Quinn and things like this. I will say that I did feel, coming off season 2, there is a Dokes size hole in this season. I love Dokes in seasons 1 and 2, and because this is the season right afterwards, I missed that energy and that dynamic in this season. And then ultimately our Skinner being this 1-2 combination of the Skinner who's pretty well forgettable. He's just like a guy over here killing people, not much of a presence in the show. And Miguel Prada, who's the friend but turns to be deceptive. It's just not as interesting and fully compelling of a big villain reveal and everything like that as you get to the end of it as some other ones, or as playful and fun as some of these other seasons. But once again, like I said, a season that I thoroughly enjoyed. Coming in at number 5, Dexter Resurrection, our brand new season, the best season of Dexter in 15 years. And I went in very skeptical because of how New Blood disappointed me, because of how the last 3 seasons of the main run had disappointed me. And the trailers teased this idea of Dexter going to a dinner with serial killers. And I thought that was a pretty terrible idea. As it turns out, they found the angle to absolutely pull it off and take someone like me that was pretty skeptical of what they were doing and absolutely win me over with the execution. A big part of it is that it has the ideas of New Blood, new location, Dexter, new phase of life, relationship with Harrison, but puts it back in a lively setting and puts it in a context where you can buy into it. It's not irritating. So instead of very boring Snow City, we're in New York City, a city just as lively as Miami, but in a totally different way, with its own big personality to bring life to the world where Dexter is taking place. And there's plenty of people for him to kill. And they fixed the relationship with Harrison. So there's bumpiness there, but there's actual progress, and not just ridiculous teen angst. Harrison is the worst. Harrison is no longer the worst. You can buy into him. The side characters here are dramatically more interesting. Whether you're talking about Blessing and all how energetic he is. I don't think the cop characters are the most interesting. They're probably some of the weaker characters in the season, but even they have little quirks to them. The whole Saturday Staying Alive bit that pays off in the finale with the dance and everything. There's spice to all of the characters, and somehow the Dinner for Killers thing actually worked for me. They found the way, whether through casting or everything about it. I was like, I am buying into a plot line that on paper does not work for me whatsoever. Good job, writers. You pulled it off. The thing that maybe held it back from being in the top 4, top 3 perhaps, was I wasn't fully satisfied with the Batista plotline and the the final resolution to the season was a little too straightforward, where you look at season 4 and what you do, really the top 3 seasons on here have a big twist, a hook, a main theme. And I didn't feel that necessarily with this season. I thought the Batista resolution, I think he just deserves something better, more interesting than his blind range. He couldn't let go of it, so he started choking Dexter and gets shot in the back by the guy that just kidnapped him at gunpoint. That, I just don't think that was really? That you couldn't do better than that? And then, like I said, the last episode, I'm glad they didn't take a big swing and fail like they did with New Blood in season 8 or season 7 or season 6. But it played it safe, and so it didn't have an ending that elevated or took it to that next level. It was like, okay, I'm fine with that. But it didn't inch it up. But overall, so happy that the show, as the title said, brought Dexter back to life, and it's good again. It has the personality, and it's like they know what the audience wants again. Bringing us into the top 4, season 5. For me, this is the most underrated season of Dexter. I have never understood people that are super negative on season 5. Is it a drop off in quality from season 4 and that incredible finale? Yes, because that's the peak of Dexter. So of course there was going to be a drop off. The first 2 episodes are a slog to get through because the death of Rita is such a wet blanket on top of the show that you have to get through. But once you get through that and you get into the plot line about Lumen and this group of rapist killers and the girl needing to get revenge, Dexter needing someone to connect with, every single piece of that, I think, is rock solid Dexter. It's a good idea of how could you have something therapeutic for Dexter? How can you have a new type of character for him to connect with that doesn't feel like we're just replacing Rita, but has a role in his life? It makes sense. And then it's likewise bringing someone in that's on a revenge mission with him. She is not a serial killer, but she's someone that wants to get even with people, and it gives you a whole line of people that you're like, I want to see those guys die and get it. And because the guy's a public figure with resources, there's a fun cat and mouse back and forth throughout what's kind of going on there. Throw into the mix, RoboCop is trying to track down Dexter in the midst of all of this, playing this totally sleazy former cop PI, and Quinn is part of that taking place. And so there's a certain sense of betrayal, but he's not in the wrong with what's kind of going on there. And then all of it kind of leading up to Deb discovering them in the middle of the act, but letting them get away with it because she's like, I'm okay with this. For me, this was a really solid season that I've never really understood why people are so negative on this season of the show. Maybe it's just because I like Julia Stiles, and so I dug the dynamic with Lumen and everything kind of going on there. And even the relationship with Astrid, is she's like, what is this girl doing here? You're replacing my mom, and trying to figure out what exactly was kind of happening there and why she was in his life. I just bought into it on that emotional, that character level, and on watching a show about a guy killing people, I liked watching him kill all of these rapist murderers. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the seasons of Dexter. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. Also, I have done extended reviews of a number of the seasons of Dexter. I'll have a playlist somewhere around here where you can check that out. I made it through season 4, and then I covered New Blood when it came out, and I covered a lot of Resurrection as it was playing. I wanted to do all the seasons, I just ran out of time. It was a busy season with all of that, but if you want enormous Dexter thoughts, they are right down below. In 3rd place, season 2. I'll talk about this in just a second, but in a lot of ways, season 1 of Dexter was kind of a pilot season where they were figuring some things out. Season 2 of Dexter irons out all of those kinks. It's a much smoother season of the show and introduces one of the most pivotal plot lines of the entire show, the Bay Harbor Butcher. And it's just a great plot line. The idea that what if all of those bodies were found and the FBI was tracking down Dexter? What would he do? And bringing in that, they bring Lundy in as this foil for Dexter, who's a very different type of character that brings a unique energy to the show. Really enjoyed what they did there. Even the weird relationship with Deb, the much older man that she's drawn to, but it kind of makes sense. And so you've got the FBI tracking down Dexter. Dokes always try to track down Dexter. So he's on the run. And so we don't have a classic villain for the season in that regard. The situation is the big villain of the season, all while Dexter's worldview has kind of been deconstructed by the events of the last season as he realized that he had a brother, as he realized Harry wasn't perfect and flawless, that he did a lot of what he did out of guilt. And so he's like unpacking all of these different things. Meanwhile, stuff that he did with Paul is coming back to haunt him. And so he's having to have a series of lies to cover all of that up. In which case, Dexter ends up in this, going to rehab for drugs while trying to process it's actually killing that's his drug, all leading to Lila. So just a lot of really great character work, conflict without it just being there's another killer over there that he needs to take out. I think some of the Lila crazy ex-girlfriend stuff I don't think is the most compelling stuff on the show, of just going taking crazy ex-girlfriend to the most insane levels. And I think Dokes is such a great character. I love Dokes in this show, that having him only last 2 seasons and be the scapegoat is one of those couldn't we have held off on this plot line till a later season or something like that? But overall, a season that this is the show firing on all cylinders, of having great kills, great back and forth of Dexter having to work his way out of the messes he's gotten himself into, all while showing him slowly grow as a person. Our runner-up, season 1, Dexter at its purest, where Dexter isn't being chased, he isn't working with anyone, he isn't married, he doesn't have a kid. It's the original basic concept of Dexter, a serial killer who his entire life is built around not getting caught, and he builds a fake relationship, a fake job that gives him access to crime information to find people that he can kill that deserve being killed. We learn all about the code and where it came from. It is Dexter at its purest. Along those same lines, it's Dexter kind of at its bumpiest in one sense, as it's a first season where they were trying to kind of figure out what they were doing and all the characters. And while they're largely fully formulated in the original version, there are little bumps that they were working out. How much are we basing it on the book, and how much are we doing our own thing? How much are we expanding it? And so it's kind of interesting after you've watched through the show and you go back and rewatch the original season, LaGuardia's a very different character that's much less sympathetic and way more into Dexter than she is in the later seasons. And a few other things are just kind of interesting, the way that it feels in the original season. But as I said just a second ago, I'm a huge Dokes fan. And so Dokes just brings this fun energy. It's the one person that knows something's wrong with Dexter and is constantly seeking him out. The villain here is the sort of villain that you could only really do once, which is to say that villain that has that deep personal connection to our main character, that ties into his origin, ties into his upbringing. Everything about Dexter is upended by the reveal that the ice truck killer is in fact his brother, and that he had a brother that Harry abandoned because he was too broken. And that even sets so much of the rest of the show in motion, but it also gives this season this big, great emotional hook to it where you care about it. The choices Dexter makes at the end of the season matter. And that deconstruction that starts happening here makes Dexter stop being the thing that Harry formed him into and start becoming the person that he keeps morphing and evolving into throughout the course of the show that is more than just a monster being held in a box by a code. And so just like so many like great ideas, just such a great base concept for a show, a serial killer that kills serial killers, and with just like from the beginning, just nailing that tone of it's quirky, it's darkly humorous, it's horror, it's a thriller, it's a crime investigation, there's twists, there's turns, there's drama, and it worked from the beginning. But coming in at number 1, season 4, the most well-rounded season of Dexter, where the show was firing on all cylinders, and they just came up with a great central theme for the season. Can you be a family man and a serial killer? They came up with the perfect villain in the Trinity Killer that Dexter would be infatuated with, but also feels the perfect target that he needed to kill. They cast it perfectly with John Lithgow, who is able to be charming, wholesome, horrifying, and just so creepy and unsettling. He can do all of the different things that Trinity needs to be effortlessly, and all along the way had all of the right little subplots. That Lundy comes back, like who's the one guy that got away, the Trinity Killer, that kind of creates this revenge plot for Deb in the middle of everything kind of going on here. And then as we're doing this exploration of Dexter's humanity and his trying to like grow and learn, his curiosity, but also the code and everything that comes with that, all along the way, Dexter makes choices that could have stopped the inevitable conclusion to the season. Like when I talk about season 8 and New Blood having these finales that in no way feel inevitable, they don't feel like what the season was building towards at all, I'm contrasting that with season 4, where all along the way, Dexter's like, hey, can I do this? Can I be this serial killer and have a family? Is this guy the example of how to do it? Wow, that'd be what? And he's curious, and he keeps not doing what he needs to do. He keeps not. At one point in time, he saves the Trinity Killer. All of it, creating a scenario that builds up to this inevitable conclusion that this game that Dexter is playing has consequences. And if you dabble in it, the people around him will be hurt. And it creates the cycle that now Harrison is born in blood as well, being just one of the great season finales of all time, a fantastic twist that felt earned, and it made sense in the season with the story being told, the overall show being told, the journey that Dexter's on and him having a family and a kid and him still screwing around with this stuff. All along the way, there are great twists, turns, surprises. The writing was on point. The characters were on point. And there weren't any little stupid superfluous things that didn't go anywhere, that didn't matter, that were irritating. It was all focused and it was all really good. This is one of the great seasons of television of all time, so it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video, remember you can check out my bigger reviews of some of these in this playlist somewhere around here. If you want to check out those Dexter audiobooks, consider joining over on Audible. The link down below in the description is how you can get that free audiobook. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.